isimadonsela en makutu ayanda kumalo sibonga konke mathe ntombi ndlovu siyanda twala dalani boqolo lungisani Sunday mbata kumlane Zulu Togosani mashasi kwalisi lesi bisi mangele siboniso tutugane tube olalani mokono.
It's a Friday, Jambo Africa, Zonga Africa and the diaspora, and thanks very much for making time once again and for choosing us. My name is Titus Tshungu. We are going a bit deeper, going above and beyond, looking at the developments in the Middle East, the conflict between Iran and Israel, just to get the gist of it all, to get the basis for this conflict and its implications, the impact of it on the African continent, particularly South Africa. And for that discussion, I'm joined by a political analyst, Mr. Sandile Swana. Thank you very much for making time, Mr. Swana. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Titus, and let me greet your viewers. Thank you.
Yeah. Do you perhaps need a beret or a cap?
I got my own in the car.
Okay, sure. All right. First and foremost, Mr. Swana, why the conflict in the Middle East? Why is Iran and Israel fighting? What's the basis for that conflict? And if you may give us a historical perspective of this conflict, because we understand that historically, these are the two countries that have been in loggerheads for decades. They've never seen each other eye to eye. They've never had any diplomatic ties.
Thank you so much, Titus. First of all, we must understand and accept that the state of Israel is established around 1947.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk about Iran, you count their age in thousands of years, long before Christ. Okay, so
sure.
So this is not a fight among equals. Israel is a child compared to the state of Israel is a child.
Mm-hmm.
That was formulated and created by Europeans and the Americans after World War II. 1947 is after World War II.
As a spheres of influence. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So the second consideration of why is there war, the unending war in that region in the past, give or take 120 years, since 1903.
Sure.
The people who started this particular type of problem are the British when they discovered oil there. And they wanted basically a state in Iran that could be controlled by the British in such a way that they could continue exploiting the oil there without being disturbed by the local leaders and the local government. And they achieved that for quite some time. And then around the time of the end of the World War II, the people of Iran actually elected a democratic candidate to run the country, who then immediately nationalized the British oil company. The company that you see in the streets called BP, British Petroleum. Mm-hmm. They were basically the one exploiting the oil there. And this fellow went along and nationalized the whole thing for the people of Iran. Mm-hmm. And arrangements were made to get rid of him. And a new guy was put in, a dictator was put in. Mm-hmm. And that continued until 1979, when this dictator was removed. And this system of government that you have now, the Ayatollah Khomeini and all these guys came in, which you still have till today.
Sure.
So the long and short of the fight from a Western perspective, UK and USA, is to protect their interests in the energy, in the oil. Mm-hmm. Now, when their boss there was removed, their puppet was removed in 1979, the students, remember that the previous puppet was a friend of the United States. So the United States was running the show. The CIA had the headquarters of the CIA for Asia in Tehran, in Iran, in the capital of Iran. They were physically there, running all countries in Asia from there in terms of spying.
Sure.
So when this fellow gets overthrown, now, let me tell you, they had that big CIA office of spies and a mint. So the money to bribe anybody they needed to bribe was actually being printed there, physically printed in Tehran. So the USA saw that as their headquarters, let alone today that they present Iran as a big enemy, a big terrorist organization. That was their headquarters for their spying on all the Asian nations. Now the students of Iran, when this coup overthrow of this puppet happened, of the Shah happened, they then said, there are documents that could incriminate the Americans of the wrong things they've been doing here since World War II. So they went to the embassy. Inside the embassy, there were more than 52 agents. Some people put it at about 66 agents of the CIA who were shredding papers of evidence of the mischief, political mischief and security mischief that the USA was conducting from Iran. So the students got there, arrested those guys, and took the papers, some of the papers that they'd been shredding, and went to the local schools, and those papers were put together. And they showed all the mischief that the United States, this is around 1979, 1980.
Yeah.
And it became clear. And then these students published these papers to the world to show what America had been doing that was wrong. And they had these captives of these CIA agents. And President Carter did not want to negotiate with these students to release those captives. So that's when now America changed the attitude towards Iran, when they had captured the CIA. And that attitude has been maintained until today, that negative attitude. Eventually, Jimmy Carter tried to negotiate this, and he succeeded. But then other Americans negotiated that, no, wait until Reagan, before releasing those captives, wait until Reagan is elected. And when Reagan elected, he claimed the victory, and Jimmy Carter was swept off the carpet and off the political map.
Sure.
Then matters were settled there, but the Americans were not satisfied. Then they went to Saddam Hussein in Iraq and said, there are some Arabs like you there, people like you there who are being oppressed in Iran. We can help you to go and fight and take territory from there, or take those people and free them, and this and the other that they instigated. And Saddam Hussein fell for the trap. You know what eventually happened? Eventually they quarreled with Saddam Hussein, the Americans, and they killed him. Right? And they bombarded Iraq and damaged that country. So in the process of time, what has happened is that the Western powers, led by the United States and the United Kingdom, have wanted to destabilize Iran all the time for the simple reason of exploiting the oil there. They've wanted to maintain, the Americans since the early 70s, wanted to maintain Israel as basically their military base to destabilize all the countries that control oil in the Middle East. So the war that is going on there has got nothing to do with any nuclear weapons. There were no nuclear weapons in Iraq. There are no nuclear weapons of any kind in Iran today. However, what is there is the oil. The oil is there, a lot of it. So the Middle East as a whole cannot have peace until all the states in the Middle East agree to be puppets of the United States of America and to supply unlimited oil under any conditions to the United States. Otherwise, just like South Africa, they'll be accused of genocide. They'll be accused of expropriation of land without compensation. They'll be accused of anything at all. So scientifically, in terms of history, since 1903, we can identify the chief culprits being the UK, the USA, and to a certain degree the French. The Israel is a mere tool. It's a mere tool. They are a tool of the United States. However, the presidency of Trump says, guys, we know what we want here. We want to get business. We have economic interests here. We don't want to kill people per se. We just want people to understand that we're the bosses and the resources must come to us. If that deal is cut, there's no need to kill anybody anymore. And that is Trump's approach to this thing. And probably Clinton also, I listened to him, that no, look, we don't want Iran to have nuclear weapons. And bear in mind that scientifically and with evidence from the United Nations and suitable agencies, there are no nuclear weapons there. Now they've changed the game to say there must be no nuclear altogether of any kind. We have nuclear here in South Africa. We've got nuclear power stations.
Sure.
So it doesn't mean that when you have nuclear, you want to fight with anybody. Nuclear is used for many applications.
Yes.
So you can have nuclear engineers and nuclear scientists for peaceful purposes. And that is well established. So we cannot say that the fight is about nuclear. However, they do not want a state in the Middle East that can defend itself against the Americans and the Europeans. That is what the fight is all about. If Iran were to say, guys, any demand that you want from us for anything, we will do it, we will be your puppet, then there's no need to fight.
In any case, why should the US and Israel be threatened by Iraq's sovereignty or its nuclear program, if any?
They are not threatened it negatively that there is going to necessarily be an attack. The problem is that, for instance, if I want to bully you, but I know that you have an AK-47 and some hand grenades with you that you know how to use. Now I need to come up with a new story of how I'm going to get to you. So the best thing is to disarm you, to make sure that you are not fit to defend yourself. Then I can bully you. So the only concern of the state of Israel and the United States is that all the states in the Middle East, especially those that have got oil, must not be able to defend themselves successfully. And the ultimate defense in today's world is to have a nuclear weapon or a set of nuclear weapons. So they are not worried necessarily that, like Russia has got nuclear weapons, all the countries that have got nuclear weapons since World War II, nobody has gone to detonate, to bomb another nation with a nuclear weapon. It has not happened. So it doesn't mean that once you get a nuclear weapon, you immediately go and bomb somebody. It has not happened. There's no evidence that it works like that.
And let's look at the action by the Israelis, Israel. What prompted Israel to fire the first shot? And ultimately we saw what the US have done by, bombing some of the nuclear sites, supposed nuclear sites of Iran. But let's look at what prompted the action by the Israeli military. Why did they launch an attack on Iran?
So, as you are already aware, this part of the history goes back to 1903. So it's not a young fight, right? So the current differences of opinion relate to the fact that the Iranians had submitted themselves to international inspections and to international protocols of how to develop nuclear and how to use nuclear for peaceful purposes. And they adhered to all those rules. And in actual fact, Obama went and negotiated the regime, how these are going to be adhered to, how the rules are going to be applied, and they agreed. And Iran complied with all the rules and continued for a long time. Even till today, they have not developed the nuclear weapon.
Sure.
So Trump, during his first term of office, said, no, we need to demand more from the Iranians. Not that they comply to international standards. We must impose new standards that we develop ourselves. So you must know that Trump does not respect the United Nations. He doesn't respect international law. So he can go to any nation and demand that you must comply to laws that are not there anywhere, that he makes them up himself, rules that he makes up himself.
Sure.
So then Trump and Israel have made this clear, 2 points clear. Number one, we will bomb you if you have any type of nuclear activity in your country. Number two, we would prefer it if there's a regime change. In other words, the guys who have not been able to cooperate with us with our demands, it would be better for us, it would make it easier for us to stop bombing you or not to start bombing you if you remove those guys and you put guys who are pro-American. And we may even have candidates that we may want to govern that country. If we are maybe to put these candidates that we have, would be much happier. So all that it was about is that Iran told them that we have not violated any international law, we have not violated any standards, we have passed all the inspections that have been done, so we cannot listen to you coming to prescribe rules that you make up yourself that are not agreed anywhere else other than your rules. So that's where the bombing came in. And the assassination of key leaders and scientists of that nation. So it's, again, when you are fighting a war against somebody, you fight with the soldiers. You don't go and kill the scientists, academics, and so on, and even diplomats and negotiators. Members of the negotiating team were actually assassinated. So the style of engagement between the state of Israel, the United States, and Iran right now, it's like in these negotiations that South Africans are familiar with, how the taxi associations negotiate. That you go to that meeting, you must have 5 guns in your body because you could be killed as you arrive even before the talk start. So that is basically that. The reason why there is a fight there and bombings that are happening is because Israel, the state of Israel and the United States want to operate outside known standards relative to nuclear and operate without any regard for well-established international law under the United Nations. They operate independently of the United Nations without paying attention to any voice of any other nation on earth.
What are the implications of this conflict? And there were fears that if it continues, it might spiral into a disaster. There were fears that many countries may be impacted negatively with this, and others were citing a possibility of World War III. If you may just give us some highlights of the implications the conflict carries.
First of all, as I was coming here, the inspectors have confirmed that there's already nuclear contamination around those sites that were bombed by the US. Because when you are using nuclear, you should contain it so that it doesn't go out into the open. So there is contamination. That contamination was feared that it would happen, because you can imagine when you go and bomb a site with a dangerous substance in it, when you bomb, where is that substance going to go other than to go and damage the environment and damage human beings that will come into contact, as well as animals and so on and so forth. So as to how far the contamination will go, we don't know yet, but that is the first threat. The second threat is that every other nation, for instance, a nation like South Africa, that we had our president being threatened by Cyril Ramaphosa at the White House, there, where he was shown a video where the room was darkened, that if you don't go and change the laws in your country, the laws dealing with BEE, the laws dealing with expropriation of land, and so on and so forth, what is happening to Iran can happen to you. So whether you are Russia, you are China, you are any nation that is in disagreement about any matter with the United States and the state of Israel, you now know that they can kill your leaders, they can sanction your leaders, they can bomb your country, and the only thing that they will tell you is that we want unconditional surrender from you. make your people, make your nation a puppet of the United States of America and a subordinate of the state of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
So now that is where the concept of World War III comes in.
Mm.
So if these people don't know how to negotiate, and they are already in the process of starting these wars with what they are doing in Iran, who knows, North Korea might be next, South Africa might be next, China might be next, Russia might be next. So everybody has got to be ready that the CIA can assassinate your leaders. The US, through their submarines, can start bombing. Israel can start bombing. All sorts of things can happen. So that is where the concern around World War III comes from. And that concern is not misplaced. The USA and Israel, both, those two nations, overestimate their military capabilities at this hour. And that is where the problem is. Just like Hitler before them, they are overestimating what they can actually do.
Mm-hmm.
So they will only know after they've been defeated that they should not have started the World War III.
Mm-hmm. And where is Russia in the bigger scheme of things?
No, Russia has actually made clear statements on this. First of all, Russia did tell everybody, the world knows that Russia said, if you have a problem with Iran and what they are doing with the nuclear material, including the enriched material, give it to us, we'll store it. Russia already has a lot of material. Everybody knows that. So you can't say if we give it to Russia, Russia will fight with anyone. They can keep it safe. So that if we are worried that if it is in Israel, in Iran, it will disturb you, we will take it and go and keep it in Russia, then you don't have to worry about it.
Sure.
And we will make sure that Iran continues to comply with international standards and so on. So they've said that. Both the former president of Russia has said that, look, there are nations that are already willing to supply Iran with nuclear weapons, but they didn't identify those nations. So if you continue to bomb Iran and to fight, there may be people who might want to end the war or to reduce its progress by supplying Iran with suitable nuclear weapons, so that they level the playing field between Israel, the state of Israel, and the USA from a nuclear weapons point of view. So Russia has also made the statement that the actions of Israel and the United States are illegal. And I want to believe that yesterday I heard the European Union trying to say that the action taken by the United States by bombing a sovereign territory of Iran are not unlawful. Those actions are actually totally 100% unlawful. There is no law that permits the United States, international law, that permits the United States to bomb Iran right now.
But NATO is there. Perhaps wherever they are, there's a NATO summit now. They might be encouraging the US to continue. But we have been made aware of the ceasefire between Iran and Israel, which Trump also endorses to say there should be a ceasefire. Do you see it being sustained?
There is no history of Israel maintaining peace. As I said to you, that when Iran was adhering to international standards, they were still attacked. And the basis of that attack was that the other nations and organizations, whether it's in Syria, in Lebanon, Hamas, and others, which Israel and the United States identified as the proxies or the soldiers of Iran, that they'd been so weakened that Iran itself is weak enough that just a few hot claps, they will surrender. And we saw the opposite. So there was a view, and that view of an inflated ego of the United States overestimating its military power, and Israel overestimating its own military power on earth, will cause continuing instability in the Middle East. up until the United States itself realizes that it is in danger of being obliterated by war, to the extent that they might be wanting to start Third World War in the hope that they might win it. I think technologically, the United States no longer has any particular advantage in the battlefield. Putin has proved that beyond all doubt in Ukraine. And some of the soldiers, senior soldiers in the US have admitted that the United States of America no longer has primacy. They are not the crocodiles of the battlefield anymore. Yeah.
So this B-2 Spirit fighter jet, aka ghost bombers that were paraded belonging to the US, may not be as helpful as they're poised if World War III comes in.
The stealth bombers were detected and they were captured in Iran. I did a study casually many years ago of the military technology of Iran, including nuclear technology and so on, and their innovation systems. Just for your comfort, you have to understand that some of those universities in Iran rank on the same level as vets. So you must not think that when you go to Iran, you are going to find some reckless bush colleges of people who know nothing. And at the same time, you must accept that when it comes to knowledge, technology, and contribution to science, including mathematics and astronomy, Iran is well recorded as a pioneer in those fields. Long before Christ. We are talking people whose history and civilization is counted in thousands of years. I think the Americans are 250 to 300 years around. So they are a fraction. These are people, they've invented the hamburger, the McDonald's hamburger and other things. And then they want to compete with civilizations whose history is counted in thousands of years. And to go into battle, not knowing that these people draw on a history of battle that goes thousands of years. And the state of Israel is there. If we are honest about it, even in the Bible, Israel was never a major military power in the Bible. Instead, Persia, which is written, Iran is written as Persia in the Bible, but their actual original name is Iran.
Yeah.
Persia was given, the name Persia was given to them by the Greeks. It's not what they named themselves. So the older civilizations on earth, such as China, that count their civilizations in thousands of years, they've seen other civilizations, such as Iraq, being destroyed by newcomers, such as the state of Israel and the USA. And they are now aware that these newcomers are very dangerous, and they are preparing all kinds of materials, technologies, science, and everything else that is needed to be able to make sure that civilization is protected. Because where the Americans have intervened decisively, like in Libya, they leave chaos. It's perpetual chaos. They've intervened militarily in Iraq. They left chaos. Lebanon is no longer a country anymore because of the Americans. Syria,
obliterated.
No longer, obliterated. So you have guys who have a ghetto mentality, the Americans. You hear when Trump was answering about what is Netanyahu and the Iranians are doing this, trying to negotiate this deal. You listen to his language and you ask if this language is the language of a well-refined, polished, and civilized president. When he says, these guys, Iran and Iraq, especially Israel and Iran, they don't know what the fuck they are doing. He used that word.
Yeah.
I don't know if there are many presidents.
Yeah, I saw the clip,
Yeah. Whether there are many presidents who know how to use that word in an official capacity. This is the same man who said Africa is a shithole. So you are talking about a guy who's got a ghetto mindset. He is using a street language in its most raw form and totally disregarding other civilizations and other cultures and other religions with total disrespect, in the mistaken hope that he has built an army that can take on the world and defeat the whole world, just like Hitler did before.
Mm-hmm. Why did Iran saw it befitting to launch a military strike or attack on the U.S. military base in Qatar?
You must remember that America launched the attacks on the territory and installations, on infrastructure of Iran. They attacked them.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are a trained soldier and a competent military general, you need to know where your enemy is and attack there. That is a logic that...
And strategic move.
Yeah, it's not... you can't be confused. You can't be a military general when your nation is being attacked and then you sit there and not know what to do. So they did exactly what their training and their culture told them to do, which you know who the enemy is and you attack the actual enemy that is clearly identifiable. And where they went is actually the largest headquarters of that military. That's from where all operations in that region are controlled. So they went for the bigger one.
Do we know how much of a damage?
No, it was not. It was not intended to cause damage. It was a warning shot.
Okay.
Because Trump said, do not attack us. But they wanted to show him that they can reach him where he is.
Mm-hmm.
And they dropped that bomb there because they wanted to say, we can intercept any bomb, we can intercept, like they had a stealth aircraft. They said that can go anywhere. And those aircrafts were captured and an American pilot was captured, this, that, and the other. And these bombs have landed. Iranian bombs have landed because of the depth of scientific knowledge in Iran and the depth of technology in Iran and among the allies of Iran. So the Americans cannot assume that they cannot be touched. And when you talk about World War III, the thing that I've warned the Americans about is that they must not think that there are no bombs that can physically land in America now. Bombs can reach America now. So you must not think you're going to go and bomb other people's countries and your guys will be eating a McDonald's and Kentucky Fried Chicken at home. It will land right there in the middle of that McDonald's.
And I saw a tweet on X by Donald Trump. He was saying, in fact, I think it's an American journalist who quoted a conversation between Trump and Putin. So Trump was asking, in fact, Putin was asking, do you need help with Iran? And Trump responded, I need help with you. I don't know how, I'm not sure how authentic that could be, but do you think, is there any authenticity in that?
Look, my view is that Trump does need help, which is why I interestingly, in as much as I don't encourage him being rude, actually I felt for him. I sympathized with him when he said, these guys don't know what the fuck they're doing. Because Trump feels that, and he said he's going to solve some of these things within 24 hours. The war in Ukraine, I mean, it's a piece of cake. The war in Israel, I'll solve it very quickly. Yeah. And so on. But he's been in office for some time now, and he has not solved any of those things. So he needs help, he needs prayers, he needs all kinds of intervention. Yeah. So he's got, it's like a man who's got a very big dog that he doesn't know how to control. The United States has got a very big dog in Israel. You know, when we were growing up, like me, I had a younger brother at school. If your younger brother thinks you are very strong, he can run up and down starting fights and insulting people knowing that he's got a Grootman. Yeah. And now you have to go and solve all these problems this young boy is starting over there. Yeah, sure. So Trump has got a problem of a very undisciplined state of Israel. And it does need help. Putin's point of view, which I agree with, is that Trump has got another problem inside of the United States, the machinery, where the elites of the United States bully Trump. Trump bear in mind that when people have paid for you to get into office,
Mm.
they also have got to tell you certain things. You can go
They
so
set
far.
the agenda for
they
you.
set the agenda for you.
Mhm.
So what is able to negotiate with Putin and even with Iran and so on and so forth, he must also then have other people, the bigger bosses, the people who control everybody, including the President of the United States. He must report to that. So from that perspective, and he put himself in this mess because you cannot join those top politics, whether you are Obama or Clinton, no matter who you think you are. When you get into that office, there are bigger boys that you didn't even know existed that will tell you that now you are not going to do that. So that's where you need the favor of God to be upon you, to assist you to navigate all of those things, over and above the limitations that you yourself as a person you might have. Because I think that the skills that are needed to be a politician and to run political systems are not the same as running a business, right? The citizens and the stakeholders are not your employees. When you are the CEO or chairman of a commercial company, what you say goes. You can think of something in the middle of the night and you send it on your WhatsApp to whoever, and it goes. You don't need to think about it again. It's done. In politics, you can send a president of another country a message and he ignores you completely. Because these are not your people. They are not your subordinates. And those companies, the Amazons, those big corporates in the United States, they are not going to dance to your tune either. Instead, they are going to advise you to change your mind. So it's not easy. It's not easy to be Trump right now, let alone his own severe shortcomings, because he does have them.
Let's come back home. If this conflict continues, how will this affect the ordinary citizen? How will ordinary citizens of South Africa bear the brunt of this conflict, considering the diplomatic ties that South Africa has with Iran?
As you know, that Iran has been there for a long time. The wars and fights, if we're, I mean, I didn't bring the statistics here, but if we were to Google it or whatever you do, to look at the number of fights between Israel and Iran and the number of conflicts between the UK and USA and France and the Western powers and Iran. So just not going even back, just since 1903, you'll get tired of counting. So when we became friends with Iran, Iran was already in many fights.
Sure.
So to say now this fight is special, you'd have to tell me what is special about it, because I don't see anything special about it. So Russia has been fighting for a long time, and they are our friend. We have many friends who've been, Cuba is our friend, they are still there. And they've been sanctioned by the United States since 1959, if my memory serves me well.
True.
So you cannot be panicked about this at all. However, the Middle East is always sensitive around the price of oil and petroleum products. So you need to have strategies of how to deal with that, as to how are you going to source your petroleum products? Are you going to look at Nigeria? Are you going to look at Angola? What are you going to do? So the people who are in charge of the supply of fuels in South Africa, the Kwedemantashes of this world and whoever else is involved in it, need to tell us what their strategy is. And I must say this, Titus, that, you know, as those of us, for instance, I mean, I'm not the oldest guy in town. I was born only in the 1960s. So we were born in trouble, and we've lived until now, and we're still healthy. So when people start wars and fights, to some of us, it's normal. We were born in the middle of these wars. So all we need are leaders who have the wisdom to say what are the interests of South Africans in terms of food supplies, water supplies, electricity supplies, supply of fuel. And it has been done. I was working in the oil industry during apartheid. And South Africa was under sanctions, and the Boers were able to get petrol into the country. I mean, at one stage, they had 18 months worth of reserves of petrol under sanctions in South Africa, of fuel under sanctions. So our comrades would have to be idiots to not know how to keep our people safe and their stomachs full.
Yeah.
So this nobody should be, South Africans should not be panicked about this. If they are panicked about this, they will not be panicked about the events. They'll be panicked about the quality of leadership in South Africa.
And the type of leadership we have in South Africa now has now proposed a national dialogue. Is it necessary? I mean, it's poised to forge unity and address South Africa's multifaceted challenges of poverty and inequality at a cost, of course, of 700 million. Wow. Is the price tag worth it? What do you make of this national dialogue?
So, the consensus of South Africans as to the work that must be done in South Africa to reduce unemployment, I think the last statistic I had was around 12.7 million. And to get the GDP growth rate to 5.4% per annum is documented in the NDP, National Development Plan, documented there. The NDP has got a implementation framework. It has got a performance tracking mechanism in it. So what South Africans said they want done was clearly stipulated. We know what it is that needs to be done. So since 2012, the cabinet, state president, the Minister of Finance, Minister of Trade and Industry, Minister of Economic Development, the Economic Cluster, and many others, Minister of Housing, since 2012, they have not done the job. So think about it. If you were a school teacher and a student comes to you and says, I have not done the homework, and then says, no, but let's call a bigger meeting to discuss the fact that I have not done the homework. What is going to go on in that meeting? What will be discussed in that meeting? Because the only thing that the student needs to do is to go and do the homework. So the comrades have not done the work, and the work has been written down. There is no resource that was short of in South Africa. South Africans are highly educated, highly experienced, highly competent people. The only hindrance are the members of the cabinet who don't do their job, and the parliament that rubber stamps any nonsense that is brought to them by the cabinet. And that is the problem that needs to be there. So rather than call a national dialogue, which will reach the same conclusion if it is conducted correctly, is that there must be a new election. This government must admit that it is defeated. Rather than call a new convention, whatever they call this thing, new dialogue, they should call new elections and admit that they don't know how to do the job. Because since the GNU took power, unemployment has increased. Since the billionaires of this country put Cyril into power through the CR17, several hundreds of millions that they paid for Cyril to get into power because he bought this presidency. All of us know that, and Helen Zille has confirmed that.
True, yeah.
So since he came in, when he came in 2012 in Mangaung, in the ANC conference as deputy president, they said this guy is going to unleash investment in South Africa on a scale that has never been seen before. On record, the only person who has set a record of high investment rate, high gross fixed capital formation in South Africa is Thabo Mbeki. So if you compare Cyril Ramaphosa to Thabo Mbeki, it would be like comparing a child who's going to start at preschool to a PhD in terms of performance levels. In performance levels. So, and then if you compare him to Jacob Zuma, it would be like comparing a child who's starting preschool to one who's at a sub B now, who's doing sub B. So that is the problem. that these comrades are trying to avoid by calling this thing. That they are only earning big salaries there and they are not doing the job. Certainly not doing the job to the standard that is required. This whole philosophy of theirs is not different from this nonsense that was brought up, that a student must pass at 30%. That is what this whole conference that they are calling. It's about mediocrity, it's about laziness, it's about failure. They will eat well. 700, I'm sure you sleep on a very good bed, and the conference center will make a lot of money, and nothing will come out of it. I'm telling you now, if the GDP growth rate changes and we achieve 4% by 2029, you can come and fetch 1,000 rand from me. I'll give you 1,000 rand and a bottle of black label whiskey. These guys are going to discuss there and they are going to produce nothing. Let me close with this on this topic.
Mm-hmm.
You see, the marriage of the DA and the African National Congress. There's a species.
The so-called GNU.
The so-called GNU.
Mm-hmm.
There's a species that died called dinosaurs. Right. These are political dinosaurs. They are married now. They are trying to make children in the GNU. When you look at the Cape Town and Western Cape, where the DA tells you that where they govern, they excel. When you look at the educational levels of coloureds and Africans in the Western Cape, in terms of tertiary education, whites in the Western Cape are 4 times more educated than Africans and coloureds. 4 times as a proportion of the population. The Western Cape and the city of Cape Town has never achieved the 5.4% GDP growth rate that is stipulated in the NDP. They have not, at best, they are around 2%. And at 2%, you cannot reduce unemployment. And there's a direct result of that. If you go to the Bureau of Economic Research at Stellenbosch University, they will give you a report there that shows you that the Western Cape province has grown unemployment faster than any other province in South Africa since 1994. Unemployment has grown in the Western Cape faster than Gauteng, faster than KZN, faster than the Eastern Cape, faster than Northern Cape, faster than Limpopo. Now, these people want to partner with the ANC to teach the ANC top performance. By the way, in terms of GDP growth rate, not even Mid-Val is the number 1 top performing economy in Gauteng. Mid-Val, which they say is the best example. So, out of many subjects that the DA knows, the one of creating jobs, of eliminating unemployment, and achieving the correct GDP growth rate, achieving the correct development of skills and education in the black communities, they know nothing about that. They are as incompetent in that field as the African National Congress is. So that is why I say the marriage of the DA and the African National Congress is a marriage of dinosaurs. It's a dying species.
Yeah, and looking at the analogy of this dialogue, you've already said that instead there should be elections, fresh elections. What would be your proposed outcomes, for lack of a better word? What would you envision out of these elections if we were to go into elections? What sort of outcome would you wish for?
There are political parties that are demonstrating a certain level of competence, but I do not endorse political parties as an independent political analyst. So I cannot do that. Secondly, I think that South Africans generally, and the younger generation more especially, need, and the intelligentsia, need to agree about a culture, political culture in South Africa, right? And what I mean by that is that our national interest, which then governs our political culture. As an example, we cannot have an argument, you and I, and then as part of this argument, the lights must go off. We need to have a culture that says no matter how hot the argument is, there will be no load shedding in South Africa. I don't know if you understand me.
There shouldn't be a darkened room. Yeah.
Yes, there are certain things that cannot happen. It cannot happen that the children are not getting food in the school because we have an argument. There can be no political argument that causes food not to go to the schools. There can be no political argument that says sewage must not be attended to. Sewage must work 100% so that when we have a political debate, our stomachs are full, the room is well lit, there's writing materials are enough, computers are enough, everything is working. We cannot have a non-working country because certain people have got certain ideas. Because we ended up with load shedding because certain people had certain ideas. Andre de Ruyter had his own ideas, Pravin Gordhan had his own ideas, Mbeki had his own ideas. But all those ideas were proved to be unwise when the lights went off. Mfuleni, I'm not sure if the sewage has been solved. What kind of politics? Politics is about getting the sewage to work. Otherwise, we're not in politics. We must retire from politics. If the sewage is not going to work, let's get out of politics. We cannot have politics where the streets are full of sewage. That is not politics. That cannot be South Africa. So the younger generation needs to say, our politics have a minimum standard. Our politics have a minimum standard. Our
Service delivery.
Yes. Our GDP growth rate cannot fall below 4%, no matter which idea you have, no matter which eloquent argument you have. So the younger intelligentsia needs to insist that South Africa must have minimum political standards. We cannot have politics where you are paging through Karl Marx and paging through Fanon and paging and not paying attention to whether the people are eating, whether people are getting medication. When you have to think about going to the clinic today, you have to be worried as to what we are going to find there. Right? So the intelligentsia needs to say, guys, our debate must be about further addition, further improvement, further innovation, not stopping the trains that are already going. There were trains here. When we were growing up, there were trains here. You could get a train from Soweto, come to work in town, go back safely, no problem. You could take a train from Joburg to Benoni, no problem. Now, those things are finished because somebody has got a political argument, or he claims to have a political. That cannot be politics. It cannot be in the toolbox or in the vocabulary of South African politics. So I am then saying, our national dialogue need to be about that, but it can only be about that when we've decided that we are now putting a full stop on this type of politics. There must be a full stop. It cannot be a comma. It cannot be a hyphen. It must be a full stop to say these politics of non-production, these politics that are not material, in other words, they don't address the concrete conditions on the ground. Those politics must stop.
Absolutely. And looking at the nature of our politics, Mr. Swana, you look at the current status. We are in a so-called GNU coalition or Grand Coalition. What do you think the future of South Africa politically looks like? Do you think we're headed for a more coalition government? Do you see any party ahead of the 2029 election winning the hearts and minds of South African and getting a majority? Can you paint a picture of how the future looks like?
The politics of the future, which, by the way, are also aided by the architecture of our constitution, right?
Mhm.
The architecture of our constitution favors a multiplicity of parties.
Mhm.
That is why a guy like Gayton Mackenzie can have a seat in the cabinet, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to do much
Mm.
to get to the top position.
Mm.
So the ANC is one of the smaller parties in South Africa. So South Africa is a nation of smaller parties. There's no party that is a 50+1 party. That period is over. It's not going to happen. So you can take it that for a minimum of the next additional 2 elections to 3 elections, in other words, it will be 2029, 2034,
Mhm.
and even 2040, there will be no majority. Nobody's going to get a majority. So the person who is going to say he's got the majority, this is what they are going to do. This person is going to convince the other guys to join him, and he proclaims himself, as the ANC has just done, to be the leader of this thing, whatever you call it, whether you call it a GNU or you call it Maibuye or whatever you call it.
Mhm.
It's about convincing your fellow politicians that they can do better if they subordinate themselves and partner with you. Those are the politics of the future. There's nobody, the ANC and the DA are not going to get any majority. The DA is trusting that the ANC will come down closer to their level, that there'll be parties of more or less equal size.
Mhm.
And then they call themselves the bigger parties. But actually, it will all be smaller parties.
Mhm. You talked about Maibuye. What do you make of Floyd Shivambu's political tourism, his flip-flopping, his credibility? He moved from being the deputy president of the EFF to being a national organizer of the MKP and SG, and Jiki Jiki demoted, Jiki Jiki now Maibuye. And throughout, he has been speaking in folk tongues. While he was still with the EFF, he defended the EFF and said the EFF is not a cult movement. But when he joined the MK, he switched or he changed the tune, and now it's even worse. How can you characterize his politics currently?
I think that all of us have to be humble enough to admit that we're able to make mistakes.
Mhm.
And sometimes fantastic ideas of a bright future can make us to make mistakes and make wrong judgments. Justice Malala, when the comrades, including Malema and Vavi, Gwede Mantashe and them, were busy campaigning that Zuma must be made president of this country and the ANC, Justice Malala said, if Zuma is elected, he will introduce us basically to new levels of sloth, new levels of carelessness, new levels of delinquency, basically. People still went ahead and put Zuma into that presidency. But within a short space of time, it became clear that Zuma was making things worse than what Mbeki was doing before. So the Youth League of the African National Congress at the time, where I believe Malema was the president, what is his name? Magaqa. Sindiso Magaqa was there, and a few others. But the spokesperson of the Youth League was Floyd. They had no confusion that Jacob Zuma is a total liability to the liberation movement, to the ANC, and to the liberation of black people generally. And Zuma realized that these young men or young people have seen what I am. They've identified me correctly and put majority of them through disciplinary with different sentences. Malema was expelled, definitely expelled. Now, there was a big, clear, unambiguous ideological clash between the Youth League and the ANC of the time. And Ramaphosa joined that fight and assisted in getting rid of Malema. So some of those people were there understood that there's an ideological clash now. It's an ideological clash, right, about how the time and resources of the ANC must be spent. This thing of doing nothing was already identified then, that this ANC is not going to be able to do anything. And during the whole period of the Zuma presidency, people characterized as 9 wasted years. But Justice Malala had seen it long before it was implemented, that it was going to be like that. Floyd and Malema saw this themselves, and they opposed this in Parliament. They opposed it and opposed it until Zuma was removed. This politics of nothingness, this politics of non-achievement, this politics of delinquency. They were not confused. They were clear about what the problem was. Even Lamula was clear. He staged his own protests from within the ANC against Zuma. He was brought into play later on by Cyril Ramaphosa, right? But as you can see now, when we look at the statistics that are produced by Stats SA and the Auditor General and so on, that the nothingness is continuing in any event. So Lamula solved nothing by staying there in any case, because the issue is that when a person, you see, if I get here into a taxi, I'm supposed to be getting to Cape Town. And when this taxi reaches Bloemfontein, I see this taxi not going. Let's say I'm supposed to be going to Musina. And then I discover the taxi is now in Bloemfontein, from Joburg is now in Bloemfontein. I cannot be busy persuading the driver about anything. I need to get off the taxi, or I need to take over the driver's seat and drive this taxi to Musina. So you cannot be in a taxi that is going in the wrong direction.
Because it's going to cost you.
Yes. So where Floyd made a mistake is to fail to understand that the problem that happened in 2012 between the young ANC and the old ANC has not been solved. It's not about whether he clashed with Malema or clashed with Dlozi or clashed with anybody. That's not what it's about. It's about understanding that as a nation, and at that time the ANC was the dominant party, where the youth of this country had realized that this is an organization of nothingness. Right? And get out of that and get out of it permanently.
And defend the class struggle.
Right? So, whether you call it a class struggle, it's better that I know that my grandchild, who's in sub A, can compete with the child in South Korea in the educational level. Whether we call it class struggle or what, but if you can say, I'm busy with the class struggle, yet your children, when they are compared to children of other African countries, they come at the bottom of the list.
Pointless.
That is the politics of nothingness. And so Floyd needs now, today, to identify these politics. He needs to go back to 2012 and not talk about the personalities that are there, the Ndlelas of this world, the Duduzile, and all these other people that he's talking about. That's irrelevant. All of us today we need to answer this question. What are we going to do about these politics of the dinosaurs? What are we going to do about the politics of nothingness? The politics of delinquency, the politics of doing nothing? When they stop that, they get into criminality, they get into corruption, and it's a mess wire. And you cannot be associated with those people and hope for success.
Would you call him a flip-flopper? Considering his utterances?
Now, I don't have to consider his utterances for the purposes of this interview. I have to say this, that Floyd needs to say whether he understands why they fought with Zuma in 2012 and why he left the ANC in 2012. Because that conflict, which is ideological, which is pragmatic and programmatic, has not been resolved. So getting back into that taxi is a problem. No matter what guise that taxi is. So whether he goes and partners and joins the ANC or joins Umkhonto weSizwe or goes wherever, or even goes to the DA.
Tantamount to shooting yourself on the foot.
It means you are not clear about what the problem is, which problem you are going to solve. At 42, you shouldn't be making those types of mistakes. At age 42. Because you should be now mature enough to know what you are now just starting to play your last dice. Right? The top of your energy is now. And if you are going to achieve a historic mission, it is now. And you need to know what that historic mission is. It's not about being prominent. Hitler was prominent. There are many failures who are prominent.
Sure.
Okay? It's not about being prominent. It's about achieving the historic mission. And there are many people who are bitter about personalities. The politics and African politics is not about a personality. It's not about your status. It is about whether the pregnant mothers and the children are fulfilling their potential. That we can guarantee that a woman who falls pregnant in South Africa, that child will reach their full potential in life because of the politics that we handle on a daily basis. It's not politics of arrested development. It's not politics of retardation. These are politics of promotion, of growth, of abundance. That is what we need to talk about. Not about fake prophecies, Zangoma, and all these other things. We can't be involved in that.
Do you believe black progressive political parties need to unite? And if so, what's stopping them from uniting?
Well, I have two things to say about that. The first one, I've already said it. I'll repeat it for clarity. I think your generation needs to unite the intelligentsia and unite the youth. So a person who is in ACDP, in DA, in Action SA, or Rise Mzansi, EFF, or wherever they are, need to subscribe, to a minimum program. We need to say the standard of our politics is here.
Despite ideologies.
Yes, lights cannot go off. That's why I'm saying to you, you cannot say you are involved in class struggle and my children are getting the lowest marks in Africa, in the school. It can't be. It can't be that you have a Marxist understanding of life or whatever you call it, and the lights are going off and there's load shedding. So we do need to get to that place to understand that politics is about a package of public goods and public services that must be delivered without fail, at the correct level of quality, without fail. So the intelligentsia, the students, the professionals, the villagers need to be able to understand that when I go to the clinic, I'm not going to sit in the sun, in the wind, and in the cold, and the whole thing is designed incorrectly in any event. Some of these clinics that the comrades have built are worse than the clinics we went to under apartheid. Right? So the intelligentsia must understand that I don't need to go to Sentin to get the best. I must get the best in Pimville. I must get the best in White City, Jabav, in Mankweng. I must get the best. It must be there. The standard must be there. Secondly, it's interesting to me that depending which history book you read, that it was more than 400 organizations totally independent from each other that made up the UDF. And that was unity. So you can unite people in a movement, not in a political party. In a movement. More especially if the package that needs to be delivered is clear and the historic mission is clear. You cannot unite people in a fog, in rough estimations, and in a general direction. It must be pinpoint where we're going. So that is why I've said I have gained new respect for guys like Alan Pusak, who could unite 400 different organizations in a movement. And the thing became bigger when it became the mass democratic movement, because even an academic working as an academic in a university could be part of the movement without affiliating to any of the parties and be part of the mass democratic movement. Mm-hmm. So when you capture the hearts and minds of South Africans towards a clear thing that says all children will be well fed, all children will be well educated, there will be sports facilities in White City Chabab that compete favorably with the sports facilities in Sandile. The standard will be the same for every South African, etc., etc. We cannot lead people on the basis of fog and things that cannot be measured, things that, whether it's achieved or not achieved, at the end of the financial year, you have a story to tell. There's always a story to tell.
Does South Africa need a new political party? The Maibuye consultation process, is it a genuine call, or it is a process born out of frustration? What do you make of Floyd's move to sort of try and form his new political party?
I think what Floyd is saying is that there is work that needs to be done, which he has not clarified. But those of us who have been around this space know that there's work that needs to be done, at least judging by the work that is not getting done by the GNU and Zuma, Ramaphosa, and others before them. Now, the question is now, what are the tools and what are the vehicles and what is your role? Right? So if you were to say, for instance, if we are forming the UDF became a coordinating entity. It was a coordinating independent organization. These organizations are independent. You are just coordinating them. So, but you can also say, I want to be a leader of a political party that will then be the leader of other political parties. Right? Which is what I think Floyd is saying. And now these people don't see you as an assistant or an assistive person to them. You are a competitor, and maybe at a certain stage you want to enter into alliance with them. And some of them you are going to recruit members from their base, etc., etc. So what I will say is that the work needs to be done. Whether to do this work you are going to form a political party, it's a big debatable question. But I will say this. They say that to a carpenter, every problem is a nail that needs a hammer. Because a carpenter, all that he knows is how to hit nails and sink them into whatever. So if what your paradigm of knowledge is about forming political parties and working within political parties, it could be that you have not been able to imagine anything else other than a political party by virtue of your toolbox and your background, not because that is what the situation calls for. So a carpenter, when there's a problem, pulls out a hammer.
Okay. Do you think he's undermining Jay-Z by saying, I'm not resigning, I'm remaining a member, although I'm going to consult South Africans on whether or not we need a new political party? Do you think he's pulling or is giving Zuma the taste of his own medicine? Because Zuma said, I'm going to resign, I'll die in ANC, although now he has formed his new political party called MKP. Do you think Floyd is pulling the same card?
That's how I see it. I think that Floyd made it clear that he has learned a lot from Zuma. and that particular statement is straight from Zuma's textbook. There's no other politician that I know of who has ever done that in South Africa. So he copied from Jacob Zuma's textbook and is applying that textbook immediately. to his mentor.
And what are the implications? What are the consequences for that?
Well, the immediately foreseeable consequences is that MK will want to protect itself, and as part of that, they will want to terminate Floyd and to warn their members not to associate with Floyd. So from now onwards, it's a matter of method and tactics of how they go about doing that. But that is what they need to do.
Do you believe the EFF is a cult movement without buying any face? If so, why?
Well, I've answered, I've commented on some of these things. For instance, in the press, I mean, I was commentating on the press conference that Floyd, the very first one that he made, launching this My Buya thing.
Mm-hmm.
And in that conference, in explaining this idea of a cult, he then says, look, when I was deputy president, a faction of some sort came to me, and I had to question whether Marshal Dlamini should be the SG. And I told them to go away because in any event, Marshal Dlamini is going to become the president, and Marshal Dlamini became the president. Which means where
SG.
SG.
Mm-hmm.
So, which means where Floyd was actually sitting, he had the buttons, the power buttons in front of him to achieve certain results. As to what he would do about that and to get that result done, we don't know. But he had powers. So that is the first problem, that if he's accusing Malema, because that comment was directed at Malema, it's the same thing that he was doing. But at the time that he was doing it, it was not a cult. So the other thing is that the elections, and Floyd participated in ANC elections. These elections have got their own background processes that happen to produce an outcome of a top 6, top 7, whatever it is. It has happened for a long time in the ANC. And the EFF has had many of these conferences. And election results come out. Nobody, including Floyd, has called the ANC a cult or called the IFP a cult. But he has called the EFF a cult. Mangosuthu Buthelezi used to win elections a lot in the IFP. And I have not heard Floyd calling it a cult. Tambo was winning elections since he went into exile until he came back.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody said it was a cult. So we would need to get some further details to discover that at what point, what are the criteria, or that you were part of the cult yourself and you're doing these things. Now you've identified that they are wrong. You are repenting, you are changing your mind. You want things done differently, and in my Buya, it will be done differently. But the case of the MKP, elections, especially contested conferences for electing leadership, have been basically abolished.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to elect anybody. And he didn't say that is a cult. I don't remember him saying that in the press conference.
Yeah, in fact, there are some clips that are circulating of him, in fact, saying the EFF is not a cult and describing how anti-cult the EFF has been. He has defended that position of the EFF to say the EFF is not a cult movement because it doesn't print T-shirts of CIC Malema as compared to other political parties. There's internal democracy in the EFF.
And is the only person who speaks in all the major platforms of the organization.
The president is the commander-in-chief, is the president who articulates our position. So they'll always mistake that as if he's dictating. He's communicating collective decisions of the EFF.
Yeah. It's because he wants to be the only one that speaks.
Do you mean Julius Malema?
Yes.
There is nothing which in the EFF we cannot say, or our voices always find expression, all of us, in terms of what we stand for.
The EFF's internal democratic system qualify it to be a cult because
he has got maximal, optimal internal democracy. I
Yeah.
don't think it's practically possible for
Yeah.
one human being to could run a 1 million member organization like the EFF. Is an embodiment of organizational democracy, which of course is anchored by democratic centralism.
What made him change his mind on what he used to say? Because he's the one who was saying fiefdoms are not sustainable. We need to unite black parties. But now he's on a journey to sort of create another fiefdom, which, for me, I think there's quite a lot of contradiction coming out from Floyd, and I just wonder at what point and what made him to change his posture towards the EFF. Really,
I think what we need to say perhaps is simply that Floyd needs to go and think. I think he wants to play a role in politics. But he needs to go and think and discover properly what his historic mission is in South Africa. Because for me, that problem that they were involved in 2012, that's where he needs to start and ask, where is he now? Is he
his
fallen off
political
the
identity.
taxi, or is he still inside the taxi?
Yeah.
Where is he now?
Must find himself.
He must find himself and find his historic mission. In life, people can say you are big. People can say you are big. Like I'm sitting here today, I might even appear on the media because of sitting here. And they say, Swana is... But the thing is, am I fulfilling my historic mission? Am I doing my job? Do I know why I'm here? Why did I agree to come here? What am I trying to achieve? Right? So, and it's not about making certain people happy. I need, when I sleep at night, to know that I've made a centimeter of progress, a meter of progress.
Contribution,
yeah, towards my historic mission, right? And when I look at all the things that Floyd is preoccupied with, from a strategic perspective, if you've made certain decisions, they may be worthwhile. But from a leadership perspective, they might be very difficult. I mean, to talk about drug addicts and all these other things that he's talking about, he needs to know as to how much mileage is he going to get out of that. What progress are you going to get?
The credibility,
out of that? No, progress. The thing, let me make this point clear. To be the most impactful leader, you don't need to be rated by the public. Let me give you a term, maybe you've not come across this term. Mindiro ya bulabo.
Sure.
Right?
I know, it's my home language.
Right?
That one.
So,
yeah.
A man who talks a lot actually is a problem. It must be the work of the man that speaks a lot about the man. When people see your work, they will come to you to talk about more work, not about gossip. Mindiro ya bulabo.
Wow. Profound. Let's look at the hegemony. The owners of the economy of South Africa. How do we dismantle that hegemony to ensure that the black majority also have got a fair share on the economy? Because now it is without a doubt that the economy lies in the hands of the minority, the whites.
We need to try and first ask the question, when we say the economy, exactly what are we talking about? Right? Recently, I had a problem with my ankle. And I looked for help. And I went to a podiatrist, a person who's gone to technicon or whatever you call it, to study feet. And she looked at it and said, okay, certainly I can help you to strengthen your feet, but you need to go to a biokineticist to see the whole leg chain. What could be the problem there? I went to the biokineticist, says I can see what the problem is, and gave me the correct program to work on. The podiatrist was a white woman. The biokineticist was a white woman. I went to do my, I have a Discovery Medical Aid and Vitality. So I went to do a fitness test with Vitality. It was a white woman. Now, all the money that I pay for all of this is not going to any black person. It's going to white. Right? I have not met and shaken hands with a black podiatrist. I have not met a black biokineticist. I live in Krugersdorp. Right? So, in a lot of places where money is made, the black people are not the ones rendering that service. So, if you are not rendering that service, what are you going to be paid for?
Peanuts.
Right? So, what I'm then saying is that leaders need to be able to say, in the sports industry, because what I've been discussing with you relates to the sports industry, sports and fitness industry. These are the positions that are there that a person can do.
Sure.
Here in Tzaneen, we're going to make sure that within a certain time frame, we are going to have so many of these black podiatrists, fully qualified, so many biokinetists, and connected to Discovery Medical Aid and to all the places where this money is made. But it needs leadership. So to demand that people who don't have anything to offer must be given money, it's a waste of time. I live, as I must say this, I live in the rural areas of Krugersdorp in Maldersdrift. I keep sheep for yield. Every time I want to buy a sheep, I buy it from a white man. If I want to buy a medicine, any type of medicine, any type of vitamin, everything in the value chain is white. And I have not met anyone. When the guy from Krugersdorp municipality, I met me and I told him what I'm doing. He said, I'm the one who's in charge of farmers at the municipality. I'll come and see you. I'm still waiting till today. Because there's no leadership. There are no professionals who are saying, Sandile, you are here in the rural area. You are in the farming community. You are black. We're going to assist you to become a successful breeder. We're going to do this and do this and do this. The economy cannot be a very general thing. If there's moringa that is being produced in the north there, do you know moringa?
Yes, I do.
Who is producing it? What are we doing to make sure that that value chain is in the hands of black people? If there is marula being produced there, what are we doing to make sure that these black people are producing this marula on a commercial scale and getting paid for it properly? That's the job of leadership. That is political work, right? Plumbing. Are we confident that in every so many square kilometers or whatever it is, we have enough black master plumbers, black master electricians, and so on and so forth? Instead, I can tell you now that the quality and number of black artisans during this democracy has actually declined. It's below the levels that it was in the 1970s, right? The proportion of black people who are completing higher education has declined. So in 1994, as a proportion, you could find that for one black graduate, there was 1.1 white graduate. Today, for one black graduate, there are 6 white graduates as a proportion. We've reduced by 6 times under the leadership of the ANC comrade. Now, I trained, and there are things you need to go to school for somehow, or some form of school. I trained in software at university. Now, I had gone to school in Umtata in the Eastern Cape. There was not even a computer there. So I met the computer adverts for the first time. So how was I going to know computers sitting in Umtata How was I going to ever know it? So we can't just think there's going to be magic. There's a system of value creation that needs to happen, where our people are equipped for creating value and hooked into the supply chains and value chains, and they make money for their own businesses and employ their own children and their nephews and nieces in their own businesses. The issue of employment equity, BEE, and so on is over and above that. It's a small percentage, an important percentage, but a small percentage that needs to happen. Okay? So to me, the Chinese, look at what the Chinese produce. They produce everything that you need. If you need underpants, the Chinese will be here. If you need a drone, the Chinese will give it to you and you pay them. So until our culture is a culture of 24-hour productivity everywhere.
Political will.
It's the political will and the definition of political work. Political work is not about you being the most eloquent guy who can quote Lenin, Fanon, Amilcar Cabral, Fidel Castro, Samora Machel, Sankara, and all these things. Can you bring a package of progress?
Implementation.
Can you bring a package of progress that people's lives can be improved and economic and financial independence can be achieved? In other words, you are not improving me when you bring me a food parcel. You are not helping me now. Right? So we need to be developed by our leaders to be engines of wealth creation, to be engines of economic progress.
But how, Mr. Swana? Because the means of production lies in the hands of the wide. How do we empower?
No. I am saying to you that you see, the problem is that if the people who have got the state in their hands, they don't know what their job they must do, then we will always be saying the whites are stopping us. But the power is in your hands. I went this year to Nampo, which is the largest agricultural show in Africa, probably the largest in the Southern Hemisphere. Right? When I got there were Boers all over. The comrades have not done anything in any category to say, okay, in the development of sheep, we're taking Shiburi, Kuzwayo, Spanbani, and we want, on average, that a minimum, when a black man is failing as a commercial farmer, he must have 800 sheep at a minimum. And we have them. And they are there. And they are on the same standard. Now, the means of production, I buy the sheep myself. They come to me. And if the agricultural officer, economic development officer at the municipal knows what he's doing, he comes and helps me. And I'm creating means of production. You know, I left the white man's businesses in 1996. I stopped working in the factories in Emafemi in Ngaphuma 96. And I created a means of production every day for myself. Herman Mashaba is out there. He created means of production. So if you are going to sit there and be worried about that, you are not going to get anywhere. Right? It's not that we are saying we're going to go and nationalize checkers. Young Tol? Yes. We're going to, the people who are in BE who want to have shares in checkers, they must go there. But a young man who says, I can start a computer firm, why don't you support this young man, give him a mentor, give him the funding, open channels for him, get him into the supply chains and the value chains so that he can build a business. I'm busy right now developing. One of my relatives, he came to me and said, there's a business he wants to start. I said, Menier, I like men who move. Let's get this thing off the ground. On Monday, I was on his neck. I came down on him like a ton of hot bricks. By Tuesday, he was on the road doing the business. right? It's still small, but all businesses start small. Those are means of production. So there's entrepreneurship, there's the BEE side. But entrepreneurship in any country, Germany, USA, everywhere, all Elon Musk are still being funded by the state till today.
So we must fund our people.
Eh?
We must fund our people. Is that what you're saying?
Are you not aware that comrades are not funding our people? You are not aware of this.
The funding has got eyes.
Right? I have never received any funding from the comrades. Never. Right? I'm a fully fledged grandfather now. Right? So if you don't fund your own innovators, inventors, entrepreneurs, you don't support them because business is hard. You know, when you are an entrepreneur, you are not different from that boxer in the ring. Sometimes a punch lands between your eyes and you don't know where the hell you are. Right? So you need a system that supports the creation of black businesses.
Yes, the system. Yes.
Right? It must be a system. And the politicians must lead. Politics must be defined like that. You fund black businesses. You support businesses. You do market development for these black businesses and other businesses. You create the culture of entrepreneurship and business in South Africa as a political program every day. Right?
No, that's empowerment. Yeah.
And the standard to which you do it must be equal or above that of white.
Sure.
Right? So if a white man can run a farm and make 4 million rands profit per annum, that's the standard you must raise me to. Sometimes in Lalanga, you know, and all these other things in Kibela Matex and now never.
Yeah. And I think that's what I wanted to establish. How do we dismantle this system of white monopoly capital? But I think you have given us, you know, enough to write home about. Mr. Swana. So, yeah, would like to thank you so much for making time for us. And we hope you will be a regular here. We really appreciate your inputs.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Mr. Swana, as you have said, please, ladies and gentlemen, continue to subscribe to the EFF podcast on YouTube. Until we meet again, good. Kanamamba.
Fighters, South Africans, if you want to change your life, if you want to end the suffering, it starts with one thing: registering to vote. Here's how you do it. Go to www.elections.org.za on your phone or computer. Click Register Online. Enter your ID number and home address, where you live and where you'll vote. Confirm your voting station and boom, you're registered to vote. Don't have internet? No problem. Go to your local IEC office or voter registration station with your green ID book or smart card and register in person. Your vote is your weapon. Your registration is the first bullet. The EFF calls on every fighter, every worker, every young person, every elder to register to vote. It's time to take the power back. Let's register, let's vote, let's win economic freedom in our lifetime.